I stood alone in the empty reception hall at midnight, staring at the untouched table reserved for my parents. White roses wilted in crystal vases, while my wife Sarah slept upstairs exhausted from our wedding day. The golden child syndrome that had poisoned my entire childhood just destroyed the most important moment of my life. Mom and Dad chose Amanda's engagement party over my actual wedding ceremony. My phone buzzed with another text from my mother. "You ruined everything by not waiting your turn." 3 months before that devastating wedding night, I lived in what I thought was a normal family dynamic in Buffalo, New York. My father David ran a modest accounting firm downtown, and my mother Patricia worked part-time at a dental office. We occupied a comfortable middle-class existence in a split-level house on Elm Street, where the real hierarchy had been established when I was 7 years old. Amanda, my sister, who was 2 years younger, had been crowned the family princess from the moment she could walk. While I struggled through piano lessons and Little League baseball with minimal parental attendance, Amanda received private tennis coaching, ballet instruction, and entry into every beauty pageant within a 50-mile radius. Her bedroom walls displayed ribbons and trophies from competitions I never knew existed, while my academic achievements earned brief nods before conversation shifted back to her latest accomplishment. When I graduated as valedictorian from Buffalo West High School and earned a full scholarship to study mechanical engineering at the University at Buffalo, the celebration dinner lasted exactly 20 minutes before Amanda announced she had been accepted to the community college's fashion merchandising program. The remainder of the evening focused on her plans to transfer to a prestigious design school in New York City, funded entirely by our parents' savings account. My engineering career launched successfully after graduation. I landed a position with a respected firm specializing in automotive design, earning a salary that allowed me to rent a decent apartment and start building an independent life. Sarah entered my world during a charity fundraiser at the elementary school, where she taught 4th grade. Her warm laugh and genuine interest in my work created an instant connection that deepened over months of weekend dinners and long walks through Delaware Park. The engagement ring purchase required 6 months of careful saving, but I wanted something worthy of Sarah's gentle spirit. A simple, solitaire diamond, set in white gold, represented everything I hoped our future would hold: honest, beautiful, and built to last. When she said yes, during a quiet picnic overlooking Lake Erie, I felt like my life was finally moving in the right direction. That feeling lasted exactly 4 days. Amanda burst into Sunday family dinner at our parents' house with news that would forever change our family dynamics. Brad Patterson, a successful real estate developer she had been dating for 8 months, had proposed during a weekend trip to the Finger Lakes region. The ring she displayed made my carefully chosen solitaire look like a toy from a vending machine. 3 carats of princess-cut diamonds surrounded by smaller stones, set in platinum, and accompanied by a matching wedding band that probably cost more than my car. My announcement about Sarah and our engagement plans received polite congratulations before the conversation returned to Amanda's fairy tale romance. Brad owned several commercial properties throughout Western New York and had recently expanded into luxury residential development. His family summered at their compound on Canandaigua Lake and maintained business connections throughout Rochester's social elite. "This is exactly what Amanda deserves," my mother declared while admiring the ring for the 15th time that evening. "She's always been destined for something special." My father nodded approvingly as he calculated Brad's probable net worth based on his property holdings. "Smart girl, our Amanda. She knows how to attract the right kind of man." Sarah squeezed my hand under the dining room table, sensing the undercurrent of comparison that always surfaced during family gatherings. Her own engagement ring remained modest by design, but I had chosen it specifically for her personality, rather than its ability to impress strangers at parties. The following Tuesday, my mother called with a request that would define the next chapter of our family story. "Morgan, sweetie, I need to discuss your wedding timeline with you. Amanda and Brad are thinking about a spring ceremony, and it would be really helpful if you could postpone your plans for a few months. You know how these things work in proper families." The older daughter should have her moment first, and Amanda's wedding is going to be quite an elaborate affair. We want to make sure she gets the attention she deserves. I sat in my office cubicle, listening to this conversation, while my colleagues discussed technical specifications for a new transmission design. The normalcy of my professional environment contrasted sharply with the bizarre family politics being imposed on my personal life. Mom Sarah and I already put deposits down on the church and reception venue. We've sent save-the-date cards and booked the photographer. I can't just postpone everything because Amanda got engaged after us. Well, that's just it, honey. Amanda needs time to plan properly. She's looking at venues that book 2 years in advance, and Brad's family expects a certain level of sophistication. Your little church wedding can happen anytime, but Amanda only gets one chance to do this right. The casual dismissal of my relationship as your little church wedding revealed everything I needed to know about my place in the family hierarchy. Sarah had chosen her family's parish in Albany because of its beautiful stained glass windows and the priest who had baptized her as an infant. The reception hall belonged to the community center, where she volunteered on weekends, and we had planned a celebration focused on love rather than luxury. I'm not postponing my wedding, Mom. Sarah's pregnant, and we want to be married before the baby arrives. The silence stretched across the phone line for nearly 30 seconds. Pregnant Morgan, please tell me you didn't get that girl pregnant just to force a wedding date. That girl has a name, and no, I didn't get her pregnant to force anything. We're adults who love each other and want to start a family. The timing of our engagement and her pregnancy is nobody's business but ours. Your father is not going to be happy about this. We had such high hopes for you, Morgan. You were supposed to be the successful one, the one who made smart choices. Now you're rushing into marriage with a schoolteacher because she's pregnant. How is this going to look to our friends and neighbors? The conversation ended with my mother's declaration that she would need to discuss this development with my father before determining how the family would handle the situation. I drove home to Sarah's apartment that evening, feeling like I had just been ejected from a family that never really wanted me as a full member anyway. Sarah was grading papers at her kitchen table when I walked through the door, her red pen moving steadily across fourth-grade math assignments. The domestic scene represented everything I wanted from life: stability, purpose, and partnership with someone who valued substance over appearance. "How did your parents take the news about the wedding timeline?" she asked, without looking up from a student's work. "About as well as expected. They want us to postpone so Amanda can have her moment first." Sarah's pen stopped moving. She raised her head and studied my expression, reading the frustration I was trying to hide. "What did you tell them?" "I told them no. Our wedding is happening exactly when we planned, and they can either support us or not. I'm tired of my life being put on hold for Amanda's convenience." The relief in Sarah's smile confirmed that I had made the right choice, but I could see concern in her eyes as well. She understood family dynamics well enough to know that my decision would create lasting conflict, and her pregnancy made her more sensitive to stress than usual. But nothing could have prepared either of us for the crushing blow that would come on our wedding day, or for the discovery that my parents had been actively working to ensure our humiliation would be complete and public. Our wedding day arrived on a brilliant Saturday morning in early October, with autumn leaves providing a natural backdrop of gold and crimson around St. Mary's Church in Albany. Sarah's family had transformed the modest sanctuary with white tulle candles and arrangements of seasonal flowers that created an atmosphere of warmth and celebration. I stood at the altar in my navy blue suit, checking my phone for the 20th time that morning. No messages from my parents. No missed calls. No indication they were running late or dealing with traffic delays. Just silence from the people who should have been proudest to see their son get married. Sarah's father, Frank, approached me during the final minutes before the ceremony began. A retired electrician with calloused hands and kind eyes, he had welcomed me into their family with the sort of unconditional acceptance I had never experienced in my own home. "Son, I don't know what's going on with your folks, but I want you to know that you're gaining a family today that will always have your back. Sarah's mother and I couldn't be happier to call you our son-in-law." His words provided comfort, but they couldn't fill the empty front pew on the groom's side of the church. 50 guests filled the small sanctuary, with Sarah's relatives, friends, and colleagues occupying most of the seats. My section included a few engineering co-workers and college friends, but the absence of my immediate family created a glaring void that everyone noticed. The organist began playing the processional music, and Sarah appeared at the back of the church, looking radiant in her grandmother's vintage lace dress. The sight of her walking down the aisle on her father's arm should have been the happiest moment of my life, but I couldn't shake the awareness that my parents had chosen to be somewhere else entirely. Sarah's smile faltered slightly when she noticed the empty front row, but she recovered quickly and focused on my face as her father placed her hand in mine. The priest, Father Michael, had known Sarah since her childhood and spoke about love, commitment, and the importance of chosen family, with particular emphasis that felt directed toward our situation. "Do you, Morgan, take Sarah to be your wife to have, and to hold in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." The words carried more weight than I had anticipated, representing not just my commitment to Sarah, but my choice to build a new family foundation with someone who valued me as an individual rather than comparing me to anyone else. The reception at the community center proceeded with determined cheerfulness from Sarah's family, who went out of their way to ensure no one felt the absence of the groom's parents. Her mother, Angela, had organized a buffet dinner featuring Sarah's favorite dishes from childhood, and her uncle provided DJ services that kept the small crowd dancing until nearly midnight. But my phone continued buzzing throughout the evening with messages from extended family members who were confused about my parents' absence. "Morgan, where are David and Patricia? We expected to see them here," texted my Uncle Robert, my father's older brother. "Is everything okay with your folks? We thought they'd be here celebrating with you," wrote my cousin Jennifer from Rochester. Each message required an explanation I wasn't prepared to give. How do you tell relatives that your parents chose your sister's engagement party over your wedding without sounding bitter and vindictive? How do you admit that your own mother and father found your marriage less important than maintaining their golden child social calendar? During the father-daughter dance, I watched Frank spin Sarah around the dance floor, while tears streamed down her face. Not tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming gratitude for a father who had never made her feel like second choice in her own family. Angela pulled me onto the dance floor for the mother-son dance, filling a role that my own mother had abandoned. "Welcome to our family, Morgan. We're so proud to have you as our son," she whispered as we swayed to the music. The emotional weight of her words broke something loose inside me, and I found myself crying in the arms of my new mother-in-law, while my actual mother celebrated Amanda's engagement at a country club 40 miles away. Sarah and I retreated to the bridal suite at a nearby bed and breakfast as our guests cleaned up the reception hall and headed home with leftover cake and warm memories of our celebration. We should have been exhausted, but euphoric, ready to begin our honeymoon and our new life together as husband and wife. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed at 2 a.m, scrolling through social media posts from my parents' evening. My mother had shared dozens of photos from Amanda's engagement party at the prestigious Brookfield Country Club, complete with captions about celebrating our beautiful daughter's perfect match and so grateful for Brad's wonderful family. The images showed Amanda in a designer cocktail dress, surrounded by Brad's relatives and family friends, while my parents beamed with pride and posed for professional photographs. The timestamp on the posts confirmed what I already knew: these pictures were being shared while I was exchanging vows with Sarah. My mother was posting about Amanda's perfect evening, while her son was getting married without his parents in attendance. Sarah emerged from the bathroom in her honeymoon nightgown and found me staring at my phone with tears of rage streaming down my face. "Morgan, what's wrong?" I showed her the screen filled with images of my family celebrating Amanda's engagement while we had been promising to love each other for the rest of our lives. They chose her party over our wedding. They actually chose a party over their son's wedding day. Sarah sat beside me and wrapped her arms around my shoulders, her own pregnancy making her emotional response even stronger than it might have been under normal circumstances. "I'm so sorry, honey. I can't imagine how much this hurts." My phone rang at 6:30 the next morning. My mother's name appeared on the screen, and I debated whether to answer. Sarah encouraged me to take the call, hoping for an apology or explanation that might begin to repair the damage. "Morgan, I hope you had a nice day yesterday. I wanted to call and explain why we couldn't make it to your wedding." "Couldn't make it, Mom. You chose not to make it. There's a difference." "That's not fair, sweetie. Amanda needed our support for her engagement party. It was scheduled months ago, and Brad's family was expecting us to be there. We couldn't just abandon her on such an important night." "More important than your son's wedding?" "Morgan, you brought this on yourself. You know family comes first, and Amanda needed our support more than you did. You have Sarah's family there, and you're both adults who can handle things on your own. Amanda is still finding her way in the world, and she deserves to have her parents behind her during these special moments." The conversation ended with my mother hanging up after delivering this masterpiece of manipulation, disguised as maternal wisdom. No apology. No acknowledgement that they had missed one of the most important days of my life. Just a clear statement that Amanda's needs would always supersede mine in every situation. Sarah listened to my recap of the phone call while we shared coffee and pastries in the bed and breakfast dining room. Other honeymoon couples chatted happily at nearby tables, but we felt isolated by the family drama that had overshadowed our wedding day. "What do we do now?" Sarah asked. "We build our own family," I replied. "We create the kind of home for our baby that I never had growing up, and we stop expecting my parents to change." But I had no idea how much worse things would get before they finally got better, or how my parents' favoritism toward Amanda would ultimately destroy their own financial future and fracture our extended family beyond recognition. The real shock was still coming: the discovery that my parents had actively sabotaged my wedding day by lying to our extended family to ensure I would be abandoned and humiliated, while Amanda basked in their undivided attention. 6 months passed after our wedding, before Amanda's actual wedding planning began in earnest, but those months revealed the true extent of my parents' financial and emotional investment in their golden child's happiness. Sarah's pregnancy progressed normally, and we settled into married life in a small house we had purchased in a quiet neighborhood outside Buffalo. The formal wedding invitation arrived in March, printed on thick, cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing that probably cost more than our entire wedding budget. Amanda and Brad were planning a ceremony at the Grand Island Mansion, one of the most exclusive venues in the Niagara Falls region, followed by a reception for 300 guests. Sarah and I studied the invitation while eating breakfast in our sunny kitchen, trying to comprehend the scale of celebration our family was financing for my sister's wedding. 300 people, Sarah asked, her hand resting on her growing belly. "That's 6 times the size of our wedding. And probably 60 times the cost," I replied, calculating the probable expenses for venue rental, catering, flowers, photography, and entertainment at such an elaborate affair. The return address on the invitation envelope listed my parents' home, indicating they were managing the financial arrangements for Amanda's celebration. Given my father's modest accounting practice and my mother's part-time income, I wondered how they planned to fund such an extravagant event. That question was answered during the following Sunday dinner at their house, when my mother proudly displayed vendor contracts and payment schedules for Amanda's wedding festivities. "We refinanced the house to give Amanda the wedding she deserves," my mother announced, while passing around photographs of floral arrangements that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payments. "She's only going to get married once, so we want everything to be absolutely perfect." My father nodded approvingly, while reviewing catering estimates that exceeded my annual salary. "Amanda has exquisite taste. Brad's family expects a certain level of sophistication, and we're not going to embarrass ourselves with anything substandard. Sarah and I exchanged glances across the dining room table, both of us thinking about the modest celebration we had enjoyed, and the way my parents had dismissed it as insignificant. The contrast between their financial sacrifice for Amanda and their absence from our wedding day created a painful reminder of our place in the family hierarchy. "How much is this costing you?" I asked, genuinely concerned about their long-term financial stability. "That's not your concern, Morgan," my mother replied sharply. "We're perfectly capable of managing our finances without your input. Amanda's happiness is worth whatever it costs." Amanda herself remained largely absent from these family discussions, spending most of her time with Brad's relatives and socializing with his upper-class friends. When she did appear at family gatherings, the conversation focused entirely on wedding details, dress fittings, menu selections, flower arrangements, and seating charts for guests we didn't know. The bridal shower invitation arrived in April, addressed to Sarah with a note written in Amanda's distinctive handwriting. "Hope you can attend despite your condition. The shower starts at 2 o'clock sharp. Despite your condition." Sarah read the note 3 times before showing it to me, her eyes filling with tears of hurt and anger. "She makes it sound like I have some kind of disease instead of being pregnant with her nephew," Sarah said. "Do you want to go?" I asked. "I should probably make an appearance for family harmony, but I'm not looking forward to spending an afternoon being ignored and patronized." The bridal shower took place at the same country club where Amanda's engagement party had been held. Sarah attended alone because I was working overtime to prepare for the financial demands of parenthood, and she returned home that evening looking exhausted and emotionally drained. "How was it?" I asked as she kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto our couch. "Humiliating. 50 women who have never spoken to me before, all gushing over Amanda and discussing vacation homes and private schools and charity galas. Your mother introduced me to people as Morgan's wife, Sarah. She's a school teacher. Like that was something to apologize for. And Amanda gave a speech about waiting for the right time and the right person that was clearly directed at criticizing our timeline." Sarah's voice broke as she described the afternoon of subtle slights and deliberate exclusion, designed to make her feel inferior and unwelcome. My sister's maid of honor, a woman named Crystal, who worked in fashion retail, had delivered particularly cutting remarks about people who rush into marriage and the importance of financial stability before starting a family. I sat there for 4 hours listening to them plan a wedding that costs more than we'll make in 5 years, while they acted like I was some kind of charity case who trapped you into marriage," Sarah continued. "I held my pregnant wife while she cried, feeling helpless to protect her from the emotional abuse my family was inflicting. The golden child syndrome that had defined my childhood was now poisoning Sarah's pregnancy, and our early marriage creating stress that could potentially harm our unborn baby. But the real revelation came the following week when my Uncle Robert called with information that changed my understanding of my parents' financial situation entirely. "Morgan, I need to tell you something about your folks, and I don't think you're going to like what you hear." Uncle Robert had always been the practical member of our extended family, a retired construction foreman who valued honesty over diplomacy. His tone indicated that he was calling with news rather than casual conversation. "What's going on?" I asked. "Your father came to me last week asking for a $5,000 loan to help cover Amanda's wedding expenses. When I pressed him for details, he admitted that they've already spent their retirement savings and refinanced the house for $60,000. Morgan, they're heading toward bankruptcy to pay for this wedding, and they're not telling Amanda the truth about their financial situation." The information hit me like a physical blow. My parents had not only abandoned my wedding day, but were now destroying their financial future to fund Amanda's fairy tale celebration. The golden child they were sacrificing everything to please had no idea that her wedding was costing our parents their home and their security. "Did you give him the money?" I asked. "Hell no. I told him he was being an idiot and needed to have an honest conversation with Amanda about scaling back the wedding to something he could actually afford. He got angry, and said I didn't understand how important this was for Amanda's future happiness. Sarah listened to my side of the phone conversation with growing alarm, understanding that my family's dysfunction ran deeper than simple favoritism. My parents were enabling Amanda's expensive tastes at the cost of their own survival, and they seemed incapable of recognizing the destructive pattern they had created. That evening, I attempted to have a rational conversation with my father about their financial situation, calling him at home when I knew Amanda wouldn't be around to overhear. Dad, Uncle Robert told me about the loan request. Are you really spending $60,000 on this wedding? Morgan, that's between your mother and me. We don't need financial advice from you. I'm not giving advice. I'm expressing concern about your retirement security. What happens if you can't make the mortgage payments on the refinanced house? We'll figure it out. Amanda's happiness is more important than money, and this wedding is going to set her up for a successful marriage to a man who can provide for her properly. Sometimes parents have to make sacrifices for their children's future. The conversation ended with my father hanging up after making it clear that he considered Amanda's wedding a worthwhile investment, while viewing my marriage as a burden that required no parental support. But the most shocking discovery was still ahead, waiting to be revealed during my cousin Jennifer's secret investigation into the broader family dynamics. What she uncovered would change everything and turn the entire extended family against my parents' favoritism once and for all. The baby shower Sarah's family organized in May provided a stark contrast to Amanda's elaborate bridal shower, but it created an atmosphere of genuine celebration that reminded us why we had chosen to build our life together. Angela had decorated her living room with soft yellow and green streamers, and Sarah's teaching colleagues brought thoughtful gifts focused on the baby's comfort rather than expensive status symbols. Not a single person from my side of the family attended. Sarah opened gifts while surrounded by women who genuinely cared about her well-being and our future as parents. Handmade baby blankets, practical clothing sets, children's books, and a high-quality car seat from her parents demonstrated the love and support that should have been coming from both families. "Where's Morgan's family?" asked Mrs. Peterson, Sarah's teaching mentor and close friend. "They're busy with wedding planning," Sarah replied diplomatically, but I could see the hurt in her expression as she made excuses for people who had never bothered to acknowledge her pregnancy. 3 days later, Sarah began experiencing complications that would change the trajectory of our story forever. I came home from work on a Wednesday evening to find her sitting on our bathroom floor, tears streaming down her face, and her hands pressed against her 7-month pregnant belly. "Morgan, something's wrong. I've been cramping all afternoon and I think I'm bleeding." The drive to Buffalo General Hospital lasted forever, with Sarah gripping my hand while I tried to stay calm and focused on traffic signals that seemed to last for hours. The emergency room staff took her condition seriously, admitting her immediately for observation and testing. Dr. Martinez, our obstetrician, examined Sarah thoroughly before delivering news that terrified both of us. "Sarah, you're showing signs of preterm labor, probably brought on by stress and elevated blood pressure. We need to monitor you closely, and if the labor progresses, we may need to deliver the baby early to protect both of you." "How early?" I asked. 7 months is manageable with modern medical care, but it's not ideal. We're going to try to stop the labor if possible, but your baby's safety is our first priority." I called my parents from the hospital hallway, expecting them to drop everything and rush to support us during this medical emergency. My mother answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted and slightly annoyed by the interruption. "Morgan, can this wait? We're meeting with Amanda's caterer to finalize the menu selections." "Mom, Sarah's in the hospital. She might be having the baby early because of stress-related complications." "Oh my. Well, I'm sure the doctors can handle whatever's happening. These things usually work out fine. Can you keep us updated if anything important develops?" "Anything important, Mom? This is your grandchild we're talking about." "Of course, sweetie. But there's nothing we can do from here, and Amanda needs our attention right now for these catering decisions. Hospital staff are much better equipped to deal with medical situations than we are." The casual dismissal of our medical emergency, while prioritizing catering menu selections, summarized everything wrong with my family's priorities. I ended the call and returned to Sarah's hospital room, where she was connected to monitors, tracking the baby's heartbeat and her contractions. "What did your parents say?" she asked. "They send their best wishes." I lied, not wanting to add emotional stress to her medical condition. Sarah spent 4 days in the hospital while doctors worked to stop her preterm labor. Her parents drove down from Albany and took turns staying with us around the clock, providing the family support that should have been coming from both sides. Uncle Robert appeared on the second day, carrying flowers and wearing the worried expression of a man who genuinely cared about family members in crisis. "How's our girl doing?" he asked, referring to Sarah with the affection he might show his own daughter. "Better today. The doctors think they've stopped the labor, but she needs to stay on bed rest until the baby's born." Uncle Robert settled into the visitor chair and studied my exhausted face with the sort of paternal concern I had never received from my own father. "Morgan, I've been doing some thinking about your family situation, and I want you to know that what's happening here isn't normal or acceptable. The way your parents have been treating you and Sarah is wrong, and it's affecting other people in the family too." "What do you mean?" "I mean, your cousin Jennifer has been asking questions about why you weren't at family gatherings, and when I told her about your parents missing your wedding, she started connecting some dots about their behavior patterns. We're planning a family meeting to discuss the situation." The family meeting Uncle Robert organized took place the following Sunday at his house in Tonawanda, while Sarah remained on bed rest, and I stayed home to care for her. 12 relatives attended, including my father's siblings, several cousins, and my maternal grandmother who had driven down from Syracuse. Jennifer called me that evening to report what had happened. "Morgan, I presented a timeline of events from the past year, including your parents missing your wedding, their refusal to acknowledge Sarah's pregnancy, and the financial sacrifices they're making for Amanda's wedding. Everyone was shocked by how obvious the favoritism has become." "What was the reaction?" "Unanimous anger. Grandma Peterson was particularly upset when she learned that your parents had lied about your wedding being postponed. She had planned to attend, but believed them when they said it was rescheduled." Uncle Robert shared the information about the loan request and their financial situation. Everyone agreed that this pattern of favoritism has gone too far. The family meeting had concluded with a collective decision that would send shockwaves through Amanda's wedding planning and force my parents to confront the consequences of their choices. "We're all boycotting Amanda's wedding unless your parents publicly apologize to you and Sarah and acknowledge their unfair treatment of your family. 12 households are sending regrets this week." Amanda's guest count was about to drop from 300 to less than 90, and her fairy tale wedding would become a public embarrassment that might finally wake up my parents to the damage they had caused. But the most shocking revelation was still to come during a confrontation at the hospital that would expose Amanda's true role in our family's dysfunction and reveal the calculating manipulation behind her innocent facade. 2 days after the family meeting, Sarah went into active labor that couldn't be stopped. Our son Christopher was born weighing 4 pounds and 12 ounces healthy, but requiring time in the neonatal intensive care unit for observation and support. I held my tiny son in the NICU, while Sarah recovered from an emergency cesarean section, feeling overwhelmed by love and responsibility and exhaustion all at once. Frank and Angela had returned from Albany to help us navigate the first days of parenthood, providing practical support and emotional stability during an intensely stressful time. My parents finally visited the hospital on Christopher's second day of life, arriving with a small gift bag and expressions of polite interest rather than genuine excitement about their first grandchild. "He's very small," my mother observed, peering at Christopher through the NICU window. "He was born early because Sarah was under stress," I replied pointedly. "Well, these things happen. I'm sure he'll catch up eventually. He has Amanda's nose, doesn't he? She's going to be such a wonderful aunt when she gets back from her honeymoon." Even in the NICU, looking at her premature grandson, My mother managed to steer the conversation toward Amanda and her upcoming wedding. My father showed slightly more interest in the baby, but their visit lasted only 30 minutes before they left to attend a wedding planning appointment. The confrontation that would change everything happened that afternoon when Amanda arrived at the hospital, demanding to know why family members were canceling their wedding RSVPs. "Morgan, what did you say to Uncle Robert and Jennifer? They're telling people not to come to my wedding, and Mom is having a complete breakdown about the guest count." Amanda stood in the NICU hallway, wearing a designer outfit, and an expression of fury, apparently unbothered by the fact that she was raising her voice in a hospital where premature babies needed quiet environments for healing. "I didn't say anything to anyone. They made their own decisions based on how they've seen you and our parents treat my family. This is ridiculous. You're ruining the most important day of my life because you're jealous that I found someone successful who can provide for me properly." The accusation of jealousy delivered while my premature son lay in intensive care and my wife recovered from major surgery revealed the depth of Amanda's selfishness and her complete inability to understand consequences for her actions. But it was what she said next that exposed the truth about her role in our family's dysfunction and shocked me into understanding how deliberately she had orchestrated years of favoritism. "I worked too hard to be the favorite for you to destroy it now, with your pathetic attempts to turn the family against me." The admission hung in the hospital hallway like a confession revealing that Amanda had consciously manipulated our parents' love and attention for years, turning their natural favoritism into a weapon against me. The golden child had just admitted that she had deliberately cultivated the family dysfunction that was now destroying their financial security and fracturing our extended family relationships. And she wasn't finished revealing the extent of her manipulation. Christopher spent his first month in the NICU, while Sarah recovered from her cesarean section, and postpartum complications worsened by the stress our family had created. I divided my time between work, hospital visits, and supporting my wife through the most difficult period of our lives together. Meanwhile, Uncle Robert led what had become a full-scale family rebellion against my parents' favoritism and financial irresponsibility. The wedding guest cancellations continued arriving throughout the month, reducing Amanda's celebration from 300 guests to fewer than 90, as relatives withdrew their support in protest. My father called me at work on a Tuesday afternoon, his voice strained with desperation and anger. "Morgan, you need to convince your uncle and cousins to attend Amanda's wedding. This is becoming an embarrassment, and you're destroying your sister's happiness for no good reason." "I'm not destroying anything, Dad. I'm taking care of my premature son and my wife who's struggling with postpartum depression that was made worse by the stress your family caused during her pregnancy." "That's not our fault. Sarah chose to get pregnant before she was financially stable, and she chose to worry about things that weren't her concern. Amanda's wedding has nothing to do with your family problems." The conversation revealed my father's complete inability to accept responsibility for the consequences of his favoritism, and his willingness to blame Sarah for medical complications that had been exacerbated by emotional stress. "Dad, 12 family members have decided independently that they don't want to support a wedding that's bankrupting you, while you ignore your grandson's medical needs. Maybe you should think about why that happened instead of blaming me for their decisions." "We're not bankrupt. We're making an investment in Amanda's future, and we don't need financial lectures from someone who works in a cubicle and lives in a starter house." The personal attack on my career and living situation confirmed what I had suspected for years. My parents viewed my middle-class success as inferior to Amanda's pursuit of wealth through marriage. But the real shock came when Brad Patterson requested a private meeting with me, reaching out through my work email address to arrange a conversation away from my family's influence. We met at a coffee shop near my office during my lunch break, and Brad's first words changed my understanding of the entire wedding situation. "Morgan, I need to ask you some direct questions about your family's financial situation, because I think Amanda has been lying to me about where the wedding funding is coming from." Brad appeared nervous and uncomfortable, clearly struggling with doubts about his fiancée's honesty that had been growing as the guest count dropped and family dynamics became more obvious. "What has Amanda told you about the finances?" "She told me your parents were successful investors who had planned and saved for her wedding for years. She said your father owned multiple properties and your mother came from family money. But when I started asking specific questions about the business details, she got evasive and angry." I stared at this wealthy man who apparently knew nothing about my father's modest accounting practice or my mother's part-time dental office job, realizing that Amanda had constructed an elaborate fiction about our family's financial status to impress her future husband. "Brad, my father runs a small accounting firm with about 30 clients. My mother works 20 hours a week answering phones at a dental office. They refinanced their house and spent their retirement savings to pay for your wedding." Brad's face went pale as he processed this information, understanding that his fiancée had been lying about fundamental facts regarding her family background and financial situation. $60,000 on a credit line against their house. Yes. And according to my uncle, they're 3 months behind on the mortgage payments now. Brad ran his hands through his hair, clearly devastated by the revelation that his wedding was destroying an elderly couple's financial security. "I had no idea. Amanda told me they insisted on paying because they wanted to contribute to our future together. I offered several times to cover the expenses myself, but she said her parents would be offended if I didn't let them host our wedding properly." "She manipulated you the same way she's been manipulating our parents for 25 years, I replied. "Amanda learned early that she could get whatever she wanted by making people feel guilty for not giving her enough." Brad canceled the wedding 3 days later. The phone call from Amanda came at 6 in the morning, waking Sarah and me from the first full night's sleep we had enjoyed since bringing Christopher home from the hospital. "Morgan, you destroyed my life. Brad broke up with me because of your lies about Mom and Dad's finances. You're so jealous of my happiness that you sabotaged my relationship with the only man who ever truly loved me." "Amanda, I didn't sabotage anything. I told Brad the truth when he asked me direct questions about our family's financial situation. If you had been honest with him from the beginning, this wouldn't have happened." "You ruined everything. I'm 27 years old, and I may never get another chance at a marriage like this. Brad was perfect for me, and now he's gone because you couldn't stand seeing me happy." The conversation ended with Amanda hanging up after delivering a stream of accusations and blame that revealed her complete inability to accept responsibility for the consequences of her own dishonesty. But the family drama was far from over. My parents' financial situation had become so dire that they were facing foreclosure on their refinanced house, and the canceled wedding left them with vendor contracts they couldn't afford and deposits they couldn't recover. My mother called that afternoon crying and desperate, begging me to help fix the situation Amanda's lies had created. "Morgan, you have to do something. We're going to lose the house, and Amanda is talking about moving to California to start over somewhere new. Our family is falling apart, and I don't know how to put it back together." "Mom, what do you want me to do? I have a premature baby and a wife who's struggling with postpartum depression. I can't fix 27 years of favoritism and financial irresponsibility in a few phone calls." "You could talk to Brad. You could explain that Amanda was just trying to protect our privacy by not discussing our finances in detail. Young people make mistakes when they're in love." The request that I help Amanda manipulate Brad back into their relationship represented the final straw in my relationship with my parents. They were still trying to protect their golden child from the consequences of her actions, even when those actions had destroyed their own financial security. "No, Mom. I'm not going to help Amanda lie her way back into a relationship she destroyed with her dishonesty. And I'm not going to enable your favoritism anymore by cleaning up the messes it creates." But Uncle Robert was already organizing a family intervention that would force my parents to confront the full scope of their dysfunction, and I was about to discover that the extended family's patience with my parents' enabling behavior had completely run out. The intervention that changed everything was scheduled for the weekend after Amanda's canceled wedding, and it would finally give me the opportunity to fight back against 27 years of family favoritism and claim my rightful place as an equal son who deserved respect and support. Uncle Robert organized the family intervention for the Saturday afternoon that should have been Amanda's wedding day, choosing the timing deliberately to underscore the financial and emotional wreckage my parents' favoritism had created. 15 relatives gathered in the community room at Uncle Robert's church, creating a formal atmosphere that emphasized the seriousness of the situation. Sarah stayed home with Christopher, who was finally thriving after his early arrival, while I prepared to confront my parents with the support of extended family members who had witnessed years of dysfunction and inequality. My parents arrived, looking exhausted and defeated, clearly unprepared for the organized intervention they were about to face. Amanda had driven to New York City the previous day, claiming she needed time away from Buffalo to process her breakup and plan her next steps. Uncle Robert opened the meeting with a direct statement that left no room for misunderstanding or deflection. "David and Patricia, we're here because your favoritism toward Amanda has reached a point where it's damaging your marriage, your finances, and your relationships with the rest of the family. We've watched you ignore Morgan's achievements, abandon his wedding, and nearly bankrupt yourselves for Amanda's canceled celebration. This has to stop." My father immediately became defensive, crossing his arms and adopting the stubborn expression I remembered from childhood arguments. "Robert, you don't understand the situation. Amanda has always needed more support than Morgan because she's more sensitive and artistic. Morgan is practical and self-sufficient. He doesn't need the same level of attention." "Bull," replied Aunt Helen, my mother's older sister, who had driven down from Rochester for the intervention. "Morgan graduated valedictorian and earned a full scholarship to college. He's working as an engineer and supporting his family responsibly. But you missed his wedding to attend Amanda's engagement party, and you've never once acknowledged his son's birth with any real enthusiasm." The family members took turns presenting evidence of my parents' favoritism, creating a comprehensive picture of inequality that couldn't be dismissed or rationalized away. Jennifer had prepared a detailed timeline showing the financial resources devoted to Amanda's various pursuits, compared to the support I had received over the years. Amanda received $30,000 for her fashion merchandising education, plus living expenses for 2 years. Morgan got nothing for college because he earned a scholarship. Amanda got a new car for her 21st birthday. Morgan bought his own used car with money from his part-time job. The pattern is undeniable. My mother began crying, but her tears seemed focused on embarrassment, rather than genuine remorse for the damage she had caused. We always tried to be fair. Amanda just had different needs than Morgan. She's always been more delicate, more vulnerable. Morgan is strong enough to handle things on his own. Strong enough to handle being abandoned by his parents on his wedding day, asked my cousin David, Uncle Robert's youngest son. Strong enough to handle his wife going into premature labor while you were picking out flowers for Amanda's reception. The intervention continued for 2 hours, with family member after family member sharing their observations about the destructive pattern of favoritism and its impact on everyone involved. But the most powerful moment came when I finally spoke up for myself, delivering the confrontation I should have had with my parents years earlier. "Mom and Dad, you destroyed my childhood by making everything a comparison between Amanda and me, and you've continued that pattern into my adult life. You missed the birth of your first grandchild because Amanda needed help addressing wedding invitations. You spent your retirement savings on a wedding for a daughter who lied to her fiancé about your financial situation. You've enabled her manipulation for so long that she doesn't understand how to have honest relationships with anyone." My father started to interrupt, but Uncle Robert held up his hand to stop him. "Let Morgan finish. He's never had a chance to say this before. I'm 29 years old, and I've spent my entire life trying to earn the love and respect you gave Amanda automatically. I graduated first in my high school class, earned an engineering degree, built a successful career, married a wonderful woman, and became a father. But none of that has ever been good enough to compete with Amanda's need for attention and validation." My voice broke, as I delivered words I had been holding inside for decades, finally expressing the pain and frustration of growing up as the unfavorite child in a family that claimed to love both children equally. I'm done competing for your affection. I'm done making excuses for your behavior. And I'm done exposing my wife and son to the emotional abuse you call family love. The intervention concluded with my parents' reluctant agreement to attend family counseling sessions, focused on addressing favoritism patterns and rebuilding relationships with their extended family. But the real breakthrough came 3 days later, when Amanda returned from New York City with news that would expose the full extent of her manipulation and force everyone to confront the truth about her role in our family's dysfunction. Amanda called me on Tuesday evening, asking to meet for coffee at a neutral location where we could have an honest conversation about our relationship and her future plans. We met at a small cafe near our childhood neighborhood, and for the first time in years, Amanda looked vulnerable and uncertain rather than confident and demanding. "Morgan, I need to tell you something about Brad and about the way I've been handling things with our family." "What do you mean?" Amanda stared into her coffee cup for nearly a minute before finding the courage to speak the words that would change our relationship forever. "I've been jealous of you my entire life. You're smart and responsible and successful at everything you try, and I've always felt like I was competing with someone who was naturally better than me at being an adult." The admission shocked me into silence, forcing me to reconsider years of sibling rivalry from an entirely different perspective. So I learned how to manipulate mom and dad's love to make them think I was the special one who deserved their attention. I encouraged their favoritism because it was the only way I could feel superior to you. "Amanda, let me finish. When Brad broke up with me, he said I was the most dishonest person he'd ever met, and that he couldn't trust someone who would lie about her own family to impress him. He said I had manipulated him the same way I manipulated our parents, and that he deserved better than a relationship built on deception." Amanda began crying, but these tears seemed genuine rather than manipulative, representing perhaps the first honest emotion she had expressed in my presence for years. I destroyed my own relationship because I couldn't stop lying and manipulating even when I loved someone. And I destroyed our family because I was too jealous and insecure to let our parents treat us equally. The conversation continued for 2 hours, with Amanda revealing the depth of her insecurity and her growing understanding of how her manipulation had damaged everyone she claimed to love. But the most important moment came when she asked me a question that opened the door to possible reconciliation and healing. "Morgan, is there any way you could forgive me and help me learn how to be honest? I'm pregnant, and I don't want to raise my child the way our parents raised us." The revelation that Amanda was pregnant changed everything, creating an opportunity for redemption and family healing that none of us had expected, but only if my parents were willing to acknowledge their mistakes and work toward genuine change. Amanda's pregnancy announcement created a crisis that forced our entire family to confront the destructive patterns we had maintained for nearly 3 decades. She was 12 weeks along with Brad's child, and her confession about the pregnancy during our coffee shop conversation represented the first completely honest moment we had shared since childhood. I found out the week before our wedding was supposed to happen, but I was too afraid to tell Brad because I thought he would think I was trying to trap him into marriage, Amanda admitted. Then, when he broke up with me, I realized I was going to be a single mother with no job skills and no honest relationships with anyone who could support me. I studied my sister's face across the small cafe table, seeing genuine fear and vulnerability that she had hidden behind manipulation and entitlement for most of our lives. The golden child facade had finally cracked, revealing a frightened 27-year-old woman who had never learned how to navigate adult challenges without relying on other people's resources and emotional labor. "What do you plan to do?" I asked. "I need to learn how to be responsible for myself and my baby. I need to find a job, get health insurance, and figure out how to be a mother without destroying my child's emotional development the way I helped destroy our family." The conversation that followed changed the trajectory of our entire family story. Amanda asked for my help in approaching our parents with the truth about her pregnancy and her need for support that was conditional on genuine behavior change rather than continued enabling. "I want to try to fix things with our family, but I need to know you'll help me stay honest if I start falling back into old patterns. I can't do this alone, Morgan." 3 days later, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I agreed to attend Amanda's downsized wedding ceremony if she could demonstrate genuine accountability for her past behavior, and if our parents would publicly acknowledge their favoritism and commit to treating both families equally going forward. Amanda had contacted Brad after our coffee conversation confessing about her pregnancy and asking for a chance to rebuild their relationship on a foundation of honesty rather than manipulation. To everyone's amazement, Brad agreed to meet with her in person to discuss the possibility of reconciliation. That meeting led to a series of difficult conversations between Brad and Amanda, and both sets of parents focusing on financial transparency, communication patterns, and expectations for their future together. Brad insisted on couples counseling and a prenuptial agreement that would protect both families' financial interests, but he was willing to work toward rebuilding trust if Amanda could demonstrate sustained commitment to honesty. The wedding ceremony that finally took place was nothing like the elaborate celebration Amanda had originally planned. 50 guests gathered at the same community center where Sarah and I had held our reception, with decorations provided by both families, working together, and catering handled by Brad's relatives who owned a small restaurant. Sarah and I attended with 3-month-old Christopher, who had grown strong and healthy after his premature arrival. Our presence at Amanda's wedding represented a choice to prioritize family healing over past grievances, and it encouraged several of our extended relatives to attend as well. The most powerful moment came during the reception, when I delivered a speech about forgiveness and second chances that surprised everyone, including myself. Amanda and I grew up in a family system that taught us to compete for love instead of sharing it freely. That pattern hurt both of us in different ways, and it nearly destroyed our ability to have healthy adult relationships. But we've learned that it's possible to change destructive patterns if we're willing to be honest about our mistakes and work together towards something better. I looked directly at my parents as I continued speaking, delivering words I had never expected to share publicly. "Mom and Dad, you made mistakes that hurt our family, and Sarah and I paid a price for favoritism that should never have existed. But you're here today, supporting both of your children, and that gives me hope that we can build something healthier for the next generation." The reception ended with my parents privately apologizing to Sarah for their treatment of her during our engagement and pregnancy, and with Amanda publicly thanking me for helping her learn accountability and honesty. But the real healing began during the months that followed, as our family worked together to address the financial crisis my parents had created and to establish new patterns of relationship that prioritized equality and mutual support. Uncle Robert organized a family financial intervention that helped my parents restructure their mortgage and develop a realistic budget for their remaining years before retirement. I used my engineering skills to help my father modernize his accounting practice, increasing his client base and income potential. Amanda entered individual counseling to address the insecurity and manipulation patterns that had defined her relationships, and she enrolled in a practical nursing program that would provide stable employment after her baby was born. Most importantly, Sarah's postpartum depression began improving as family stress decreased, and our support network expanded to include relatives who had been alienated by my parents' favoritism for years. 1 year after Christopher's premature birth, our families gathered at the house Sarah and I had purchased in a neighborhood with excellent schools and parks suitable for raising children. Amanda brought her 6-month-old daughter, Emma, and both sets of grandparents competed cheerfully to spoil both grandchildren equally. My father, who had learned to express genuine pride in my professional achievements, helped me install a swing set in our backyard, while sharing stories about his own childhood that explained some of the insecurity that had driven his favoritism toward Amanda. My mother, who had begun therapy to address her enabling patterns and emotional manipulation, spent the afternoon teaching Sarah her family recipes and discussing plans for Emma's first birthday celebration. Amanda, who was thriving in her nursing program and developing genuine confidence in her abilities, asked me to be Emma's godfather, acknowledging that she wanted her daughter to have a positive male role model who valued integrity over convenience. The most satisfying moment came when Christopher took his first steps, walking from my arms toward his grandfather, while both families cheered with equal enthusiasm. No comparisons, no favoritism, no competition for attention or affection. Just a family celebrating a child's milestone with the unconditional love and support that should have been present throughout our entire childhood. As I watched my son explore his world, surrounded by relatives who had learned to prioritize love over competition, I realized that the most important victory wasn't proving my worth to parents who had failed to recognize it for 29 years. The real victory was breaking the cycle of dysfunction before it could damage another generation. Sometimes the best way to fight back against injustice isn't through anger or revenge, but through the courage to demand change and the wisdom to forgive when that change actually occurs. Our family learned that it's never too late to choose love over favoritism, honesty over manipulation, and healing over holding grudges. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your own family? And how did you handle the emotional challenges it created? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And I hope this story helps anyone dealing with similar family dynamics. If this resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and personal growth, and share this with someone who might benefit from hearing about second chances and family healing. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that even the most damaged relationships can be repaired if everyone involved is willing to do the honest work of change. Here's to building families based on love, equality, and genuine respect for every member.